I'm Bailey,
And I'm Joe.
and welcome back to another episode of Digital Delights. Today, our two brains will yet again make another game and design it from scratch.
This week, I have a noun.
And this week, I have an onomatopoeia. The fun part for us, as you all know, is that neither of us know the other person's word until we start recording. So we gotta roll with it no matter how weird the game title is. What's up, my main man? How you doing? Back in the saddle again.
I was about to say it's good to be back. It's nice to be sitting in this chair ready to record today.
Yeah, man, it's so nice out. I wish I could have kept my window open because it's beautiful, but whatever. I wanted to start mowing the lawn and making noise and shit.
It's okay. We got what, an hour, hour and a half, then you can open your window. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and the fresh air won't run out.
Yeah,
DO2.
we hope not, I mean.
uh, so we got a lot going today. We got a lot of good stuff coming. We got a good game coming. We got a good Q&A session coming. But what games you been playing? What games you been playing this week?
So I've been dabbling in Among Us, and
Hmm.
I also have been dabbling in TFT a bit more. I like the new set that came out. I personally believe there's a lot more to do with it than I felt like I was always trapped all the time with going the same meta comp. But with this one, I feel like you could argue since it's new, everyone's still learning it. But um, with the meta that's currently in stake, I've actually found like a couple comps that like would beat it early enough to where I can get a good lead to the mid game and then take that lead and just transition to one of the meta comps to either get first, second, or third. But um, it's been good. It's been a good ride so far with that game. And then with Among Us, it's always fun. Among Us is always a fun game to play with friends. So that's definitely been a nice adventure for me too.
Yeah, I've been. I said what I was gonna say. I've been heavy into Among Us. I was putting it off. Honestly, I was putting it off for a while because I was looking at it and I was watching people play it, and I made like a very false judgment that it was going to be a a kind of one and done game because when I was watching it, it looked like very, very hard to win as imposter, like a very odd social deception game where it so heavily involves on like looking at where everyone is that like you can't get by and you can't lie. And I was way too quick to say it was a bad game because I sat down to play it and all that went out the window. Like it was so fun, dude. I have like probably 60 hours on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. The I have my first day playing it. I had 10 games, and like six of them I was the imposter. It's whack. It's crazy.
It's funny to me because I've been in so many games where I'm the last imposter left, and the first imposter gets booted like like basically round one. Like they get found out, they're out, and it's just me basically against like I'm trying to think like eight, seven other people potentially. So I'm always like, all right, what the hell do I do here? Like I can't just go around and start killing people, because then they'll easily know it's me. So, my tactic when I'm the last one is usually let everyone else blow themselves up. Because I know someone is going to make a bad call somewhere. Because if they don't, then I'm out second round and that's it at the end of the game. And it's so funny. Just me as the imposter, literally doing nothing but like going to do tasks, like to fake them really well and they just blow themselves up. Like they'll just be like, "This guy didn't even do his task right. Like he walked to it, the bar didn't even
Yeah,
fill," and I'm just
yeah.
sitting there smiling, like, you're blowing yourselves up, guys. Like I'm just chilling.
I was playing with my friends back home, which is really nice. It was another. This is another one of those games that is a like a quarantine savior because any socially dependent game is just really good at that. Like, and I think that we haven't had a game like that since Animal Crossing New Horizon, which is like the saving grace of the quarantine.
Hmm.
But I was playing, and it was just nice to talk to my friends back home, and like I was there. But we were playing, and they were complaining. They were like, nobody ever fakes keys. Like, it's the dumbest thing to fake because it's right at the beginning. The bar doesn't go up. Everyone sees you do it. And then the next game, I faked keys. And as soon as the bar went up from someone else, I walked away, but they stayed for some reason and then walked away. So my friend Gabe called. I think it was Gabe. I don't know. Someone called an emergency meeting, and was like, I don't know, John. I don't know. There's no John, but John faked keys, and I was like, yeah, 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 he did.
I love it. Just smiling back. He's just smiling behind the computer, like, yeah, you guys just messed up that call. That's it. I'm scot free.
And with TFT, I mean, with TFT, I used to play TFT, and now I do this thing, which I don't know if you remember, but every time there's a patch in TFT, I will reinstall it, play a game, win, and then uninstall it.
Wait, that's crazy.
My win rate in TFT is like 90%.
Oh my god!
Like first place win rate in TFT is like 90%.
Unreal.
Yeah, because I remember not last time, but the last time I did really well in the game, I installed it and I built a heavily like woodland tribe. And it's always the day it comes out, so really it's not giving me much like credit here because no one knows what the hell they're doing the first day of the patch. I'll play, shred, and I'll leave. It's just kind of like a reassuring, like, yeah, you're good at video games.
Stats don't lie.
Yeah, stats don't lie. Look them up. It was nuts though. I went on like a 14 or like a 15 win streak that game.
Unreal.
Yeah, but anyway, we're here to do game stuff, so.
Yeah, we're here to talk games.
Yeah, we could ramble all day, like Xbox buying Bethesda, Microsoft buying Bethesda. That is nuts. I don't even want to talk about it, but oh my god, look it up. It's downhill for Sony fans, and I'm sad. Yeah, so I got an onomatopoeia. Joe's got a noun.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna get into it. You ready for this?
Yeah, who's going first?
I think I do.
You have to go first, okay?
Yeah. You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what it says in the notes, so.
So, yeah.
All right, I'm doing it.
Full send.
Uh-oh.
Glass.
Ooh. Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So the name of the game
Glass.
is Glass. Wow. Talk about absolutely no contextual.
I really don't think we need any because the context is going to come from the story, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking about different ways to approach it, right? Because we've had those play on words.
Yeah, this is one of them yet again.
Where you think, like, glass could be like a cop out, platformer, avoid breaking the glass and don't step on it. But then you think about like glass as a word, and it could be like a drug based game or something with like, like isn't me? I know my drugs and everything. I'm just trying to make sure. Isn't glass like crystal meth?
Idea.
Hey,
good friend,
Google.
Good friend Google here. Hold on. One moment.
The joy of editing. The joy of editing. Okay.
So there's a large list of other names for drugs, and I'm trying to search through it to find glass. They call oxymorphine, I think, O-bomb, which is interesting.
Can O-bomb.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, screw it. This is a game. This is a fictional world. We're making our own drug. Check this out. All right. So we got story basics. Um, so the uh-oh comes later.
All right.
The glass is a okay. So we're talking about a dystopian society. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
dystopian society, and this higher up governmental figure is trying to control the population through a drug called glass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they give it to the general population, and they see things like normal. So they see things super plain the way that they want them to see it. But you, as the player, almost like very The Giver style. I don't know if you ever read The Giver or watched the movie The Giver,
I've read it.
where I can't remember the main character, but he starts injecting his stuff into an apple, and then he'd start to act differently. It's kind of that same premise where this main character stops following for a second just to see what happens, or maybe he accidentally loses his dose, and then he starts to see the world in this crazy psychedelic color. So it's backwards, right? It's not the normal, it's not what you'd expect. So basically, when you take this drug, glass, everything is normal and in black and white and boring. But then when you stop taking it, everything starts to be like kaleidoscope, crazy acid trip art. And the premise of the game is people off of it so they can know who the world is. So it's like, uh-oh, stay away from that, stay away from glass.
Yeah,
This is
I
all
like.
off the dome, but
Yeah, I like that. Let's say we take this direction and just pivot a little bit, right? So I like the whole, public getting access to this drug, thinking it's like, over the counter, something that the government wants everyone to take. I like that bit. But what I would say is instead of the main character so much like fighting the system, right? Let's have the main character have to go through, you know, uh, consequences for not taking this over the counter thing. Since we can argue, that this drug's been around for a good time, right? And it's been used enough to where future generations are starting to have signs of these drugs through birth, right? So they're the government is a little messed up here because now humanity depends on this drug to a degree. We this sense of dependency has to be there. And I think like if we take that player and we give him or her, that type of dependencies or that type of ideals, we could mix this, game up to where it's more about like skill too, not just so much in depth regarding the story. Like we got to add, I feel like we could throw some skill into this game, like give it some spice, not so it's like straightforward and in depth, like this type of game, I feel like we could give it some punch, like something extra to where that like what people struggle with on the daily. Like if people have a dependency to a drug, right? It's hard for them to wean right off of it because your body is now dependent on it. It uses it. So I think we should express that type of danger through this game because not only would it be a good message, but it would also be, I think, some punch that the game could have rather than it just being simply straight through. You walk through this type of story, you're seeing everything differently. Because I don't want to say it's not interesting, right? Because it is interesting, but if we add more to it, it just builds it up rather than just having it be stagnant, static the way it is.
yeah, no, I get you. You're right. With the skill aspect that we need to like work on with this, we could even that could branch off of the story in a sense, right? Because if you need to, let's say that struggle. that consequence for not taking it is uh, the equivalent of a bad trip. So you're trying to get off this thing, and then for a while, everything looks like very kaleidoscopic and rainbow and beautiful. But then let's say you bump into something, or you take damage, or just randomly this happens where everything shifts and then it's dark and demons show up and you have to fight off whatever demons are there, and then it goes back to being rainbow. And that's the skill and a story aspect too, because now you're seeing it visually that this is a struggle. What do you think about that?
I dig it. See, like a little combat, either a little combat or a little type of action of some kind. Maybe even like he's seeing the world beautifully at one moment, and then they're taking, this trip down a road, but the road doesn't seem to end, right? And he just keeps walking and walking down this road constantly until all of a sudden, he's in front of a, and the building just pops up right in front of him. So throw a quick time event right there. Stop yourself from hitting the building. Like don't walk right into the front door. Basically, that's a pull door. Like don't do that. But there's little things. It's like you're basically walking through the experience of someone who's trying to better themselves in a way that they see is the right way to better themselves. So these little things that we could throw in, like you said, with the demon combat, because he's seeing things, you know, uh, changing the landscape, uh, even what he hears, like if he's talking to someone and he's trying to get information out of somebody, but he's going back and forth between these types of visions or hearing things and stuff like that, he could be thinking that someone's trying to give him information when that information's wrong. So now he needs to base it off of what he's experienced, if what this person is saying is even reality, right? Because it could just be all in his head. He has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting take too on someone trying to get better, or in this case, like disconnect from the norm. Because in this game, it's kind of backwards because it's him getting better, her getting better, or they getting better is resembled through like a drug, what we think of as like a drug trip, but in this game, it is him reverting to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just
Right.
backwards. It's like a backwards bloom. I love that.
Well, see, the thing is, society has a way of always saying these things are right, and you have to follow them or you have to do them. It's a societal basis.
We live in a society.
Exactly. We do live in a society. So, when someone goes against the norm of society that's been established for years, just like what's going on nowadays, everyone's always going up against something that was, the norm. And there's constant change all the time in society for the idea of we need to be better. So I think if we take this game, right, and we mirror it, we mirror this ideal that society's always changing, there's always got to be something that needs to change in society, and we slap it onto this player who's going through this story, it's got many messages in it. This type of story, I feel like, has a lot of messages in it, and we could easily express it, through an entertaining way and not just sit down story time, you know? Like this is a game where you need to feel the experience, not just see it. You know what I mean? It's not just something you could just tell someone, "Oh, I understand what you're going through because, I see it every day." To some extent, you can't say you understand just by seeing it, Some people will tell you flat out, "No, you don't understand because you're not feeling what I'm feeling. You're not going through what I'm going through." And there's always that argument back and forth, even with the older and the new generations. They always say the same thing, right? You don't know what I'm going through, but they might have. It might have been slightly different, but they might have gone through what you've gone through. And it's hard for someone, of the newer generation to take that type of information in because they like to see exacts. They like to see specifics. Everything needs to be in line in the same way. So we're kind of taking that and we're saying, it doesn't matter what the specifics are. It doesn't matter really what exactly is going on because the similarities are there, and you got to have that kind of experience in order to bring it forward. You can't just argue I've seen these things so I understand. You got to have the whole immersive experience. Be like, yeah, I understand. I felt it. I've seen enough to where I know what you're going through and I could help. For personal sakes or whatever. But generally speaking, this is something that's an interest. This is a cool, like, society's been warped in one way that's not supposed to be, and you see that today. So when you try to change society, it's not the easiest process. It takes a while. It takes a lot of support. It takes actually a lot of money. So these are the type of things that we could probably reflect in this game, ever so slightly.
Yeah, 100%, and 100%, 1,100%. There's this idea I have, but that kind of falls into gameplay, so I won't get into it. But don't let me forget because it's good stuff. But in terms of let's say story, like narrative, I'm I'm picturing I'm picturing this this person, whoever it is, kind of waking up in the morning and maybe can't find whatever it is that they're supposed to take. So he wakes up in the morning, he leans up, shuts off his alarm clock, he looks over, he wipes off his eyes, and on the desk, his little desk with the alarm clock, there's a black and white apple. There is everything is like a gray tone. His cup with toothbrush in it, his alarm clock, his book or Bible or diary, whatever it is. And then he gets up, goes to his dresser to find the pills or whatever it is that we're using, and then he can't find it. He turns around, looks back at the desk for some reason, and then the toothbrush is blue. He's like, "What is this? What is that?" And then he rubs his eyes, and then the apple's red. And he rubs his eyes again, and when you rub your eyes too hard and there's the butterflies in your eyes, it's like that, but it's like kaleidoscopic, and then there's just rainbows spinning around the room, and then everything's lit up in color. And then he blinks again. He gets scared, and the apple starts moving. And then it grows legs, and then a face, and forms into a demon, and then it starts going towards him. And he rubs his eyes again, and then everything's back to black and white again. And that's the trailer, like to show you how many different art forms this will take on within a span of 15 seconds.
I pictured so many soundtracks for that whole trailer. Oh my god! Like, you could put so many. Like, one just to call out. Like, there's I think, what season was it? I can't remember if it was like season 8 or 9 for League of Legends. But when they did that Awaken, pictured that in there. Then there was like a couple other ones from like some of the zombie trailers I've seen for some of the older Call of Duty games. You probably could chuck a few of those in there. You know what I mean? So that trailer just sounded so crazy. Like, it just actually sounded like really good.
Yeah, I'm picturing a very similar art style to that of the Netflix show, The Midnight Gospel. It is a repurposed audio from another podcast where he interviews people about life and God and psychedelics and a bunch of different stuff. But the art style takes on so many new forms, and it's something like that I'm picturing here. But we'll get into that later. Right now, we got interaction design, baby. You already know what's good.
Yeah, you know it's good.
Yeah, we got a few Patreon questions sent in to us and a few Discord questions sent in to us. So we want to do a Q&A section here in Interaction Design to try and answer your questions, talk to you guys a little bit, and just vibe. We got 4 for you guys today, and Joe, you want to take the first one away?
Yeah, sure. So the first question came in, and the question states, "What games are you currently working on, and where do you see yourself working in the future?"
Yeah, that's
So,
a really good one. You want to
yeah,
start it off?
that's a solid loaded question. Yeah, I'll definitely take the first. I'll take the run of it for sure. Currently working on. I would say we're working with, Who Threatened Her, and Rope Man. We're working with those two games specifically to get them basically off the ground. If I remember correctly, the rule book for Who Threatened Her is actually, I think, getting to its finalized stage. So after that, we will probably work on just balancing out the game to make sure it's all nice and clean. There's no, overpowered roll or, cards that would just ruin the game. So once we get all that finalized and everything, that's when the artwork and everything comes through. Now, regarding just me for where I see myself working in the future, I would have to say probably working with just software development and working with apps like that help us, automize things that aren't being automized right now. So, a prime example of that would be when you're reading through files, manually, like you're looking at them, and if the files are corrupted and bad, excuse me, I'm sorry. When the files are corrupted and bad, um, we could take them and instead of manually like fixing them and then having someone else look at them to go, assess the data and put the data away in a nice spot, uh, it all just becomes easily, read over a nice UI and everything. It's taken from the corrupted files and translating them over to something nice and pretty that everyone could look at, everyone can access, anyone can change. So that's one place I see myself working in the future as of now. But the goal is, to make so many games, to make a lot of entertainment, for everybody. That's really what I want to do. So if I need to take, some small steps in the, software development world, make other things that are helping others, with just automizing certain jobs, like I'm fine with that for now. But I definitely want to work with games. It's been my goal since I've started. You know, definitely want to make games, designing them, developing them. Working with teams, working by myself, whatever the case may be. But that's the goal for me. So um, I'll
Preach
hand
it,
this
brother.
off. Yeah, I'll hand this off to Bailey. Let him give his little spiel on this question.
Yeah, you answered the us part pretty good. We're working on Who Threatened Her, the game we designed with Nezu. Uh, we're kind of put Rope Man on pause because we were so into Who Threatened Her, and it's going so well. The rule book is in its final stages. We're about to step into actually printing out these cards and finalizing these cards, and then we're moving into beta testing with a group of people, which is pretty tough for a card game given COVID and everything. But we got a good group of close friends, and I got a good group of close friends. We got two different groups going here, and we're going to start beta testing, putting that game out there, and then start working on an actual digital video game from the show, which will be cool. But in terms of me, aside from digital delights, I want to work at a game company. I want to work at either that game company. They made Flower and Journey, gorgeous games from the mid 2000s. Really, really, really good games. Early 2010, and or Wizards of the Coast as a narrative designer for their games, or uh, hmm, or Media Molecule working on games that they made. They made Little Big Planet, they made Dreams, stuff like that. Anything with that kind of art style, that kind of flow, that kind of vibe. That's kind of where I see myself. But enough of that. This next one here is a big hitter. You want to take this one away?
Yeah. So another question came in, and this one's a doozy. Why is Bailey so cute?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Yeah.
I'll say right now
Yep.
that he's my man's.
Uh-huh.
No cap.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Nah,
Yeah, no, fucking tell him.
nah,
Tell him, dude.
but for real, this devilishly handsome man, he is obviously beyond the levels of cute.
I
So
don't want to
so cute,
answer
so
this.
cute, so cute is such an understatement. All
You know,
right.
you'd think that this would be from the one and only girlfriend that I love so much, but it's not. This question was not. It was from another Patreon supporter that did ask why Bailey is so cute. So I'm gonna leave that there and not answer this one. Joe nailed it because everything you said is
I mean,
right.
yeah, we got a
But
devilishly handsome man. Like,
uh,
so cute is an understatement. I'm sorry, like the next time you ask this question, you gotta make it a flurry,
yeah, juice it up. You
Yeah.
know, either take me to dinner first or juice it up.
Yeah, like
This next one is
2020. Take him to
really
dinner.
good. Yeah, it's 2020. Take him to dinner. This next one's really good. This one is why is Jack and Daxter the best game ever? That's tough. I'm gonna say that right now. That is tough. I'm gonna say one of. I'm gonna reword the question because personally, I don't believe it's the best game ever. I'm gonna say why is Jack and Daxter one of the most influential games of the time? That's what I'm gonna say.
So that's good.
Uh,
You answered the question, and now you're taking the question into a new direction. So it's good. It's good. You
yeah,
got everything all in place there.
yeah. There's a lot about this game that a lot of people don't know about. The person that did ask this does, and they're very right. It is one of the best games from the time. The second one didn't dig it that much. The third one I loved. A lot of people didn't. I loved the third one a lot. It took a cool twist on personality and the world and stuff like that. But there's a lot about that game that make it really really interesting. It is like a borderline, you know, open world, gorgeous art assets. The concept of adopting, picking up like eggs from Spyro or dragonflies from Spyro, games like that at the time to progress, like the precursor orbs and stuff like that. The concept of constant like success and progression and the character development was so interesting. The character development at the time for the NPCs was awesome. There was even programming wise, that game was sick because it was one of the first times that it was this big open area. So consistently, it was one of the first few times that they were programming how to de-render things when they were out of vision, which is really cool, so that it wouldn't do like a memory overflow of the game, which I didn't know until I kind of looked into it. It wasn't the system that they use now, but the person that was like the lead programmer on Jack and Daxter was one of the first people to successfully create something that ran like that the whole game, and that's nuts. That's nuts to me. I don't
Yeah,
know if you have a
it's
piece,
interesting.
but
No. It's interesting you say that because when these games did all that stuff back then, it was kind of like the big like whoa, like this is a huge change for us. Um, these are the type of changes that like we need to always take note of moving forward. So like with Jack and Dexter being able to do the like environmental chunk loading in the right way. I'm sorry if I'm not wording that right, but
now you got it pretty good.
yeah. So if you take that right, that's been a step that's now incorporated into games moving forward. You know, so these games, when we say they're most influential, it's not just so much about the story. It's how they were made, because the way they were made helps us future developers see what's a good direction to take a game in development, not just so much in the design aspect. I'm not saying Jack and Dexter had a bad design. I'm definitely not saying that at all, but I am definitely going to state that, you know, with the developmental perspective on things, it's nice to take away from these games, the right things rather than the wrong things.
Yeah, yeah. Jack and Daxter is one of those games, and they continued to like impress as they went on. Games like Jack and Daxter, Spyro, Ratchet and Clank, those like these duo pairs with like Spyro and the Dragonfly, Sparks, and Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, like those games were
Can't forget
super
Banjo
powers.
Kazooie, you know.
Yeah, Banjo Kazooie. Yeah, they were superpowers of the time, and so, arguably even maybe ahead of themselves. Like there are several games that I have on a list of that should not have released when they did. Like if they were to release right now in 2020, they would be way more successful than they were back then. Like Jack and Daxter, Mag, that 100v100 shooter on the PlayStation 3 that wound up botching because no one couldn't handle it. But that could be a whole episode. The last question, most important question. So this one, I got this sent to our email, and I got it, and I got pretty like annoyed honestly when I got it because I was like, who would do that? Like who would waste their time, you know? So I just deleted it, and I ignored it, and then I came back to it like later in my head, and I was like, you know what? Any criticism's good criticism. And then it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. So the question is, can you guys be more funny?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But I'm gonna
The
say,
audacity.
yeah, the
This person.
audacity of this person. But I'm gonna be real. Whatever. Criticism. So here's my answer. No. That's basically kind of what we're going with here.
That's
Because
a good answer.
good answer, Steve. Good answer.
Good answer, Steve. Good answer.
No, because here's the thing, right? Is that initially we made this for a portfolio piece and to show our design skills and really to exercise our design skills. And it works. And, this is a mental exercise that we really wanted to get into for ourselves, really. And that's what it's for, is it's for ourselves. The people that we get along the way that listen to it, we're not really trying to make them laugh. We're trying to take them on the journey and, show them this world of creation, and every episode creates something new. And if people are here for jokes, then that's not really what we're going for. Like if you notice, whenever I upload an episode, if it's not in my opinion funny, I'll give it the entertainment tag instead of the comedy tag, which is more than 75% of our episodes, because a lot of them aren't funny and they're not supposed to be funny, and some of them are even sad, like Decimate Robot, and maybe even this one, So that's my answer. I don't know if you got your 2 cents, but
I agree with everything you said. The direction of this show, we're taking it and we're just designing games based off of a compelling story that literally comes out of thin air. This is all improv.
Yeah.
We don't really sit down and prepare a script for each episode we do. The only thing we do is we keep the intro the same, and that's been a constant. So the way I see it is, the minute me and you utter, those 2 words out of our mouth, nothing in this show is set in stone. We don't have a comedy skit. Like, we don't have anything like set to be, this should be funny and this should be serious. It's just whatever the tone of the game is that we're making. It could lean toward like a comedic game. It could lean toward a serious game. It could lean toward some game in the middle where there's some serious vibes to it, but at the same time, you're just there to enjoy yourself, So it's all just based on whatever improv story we come up with at the time. So the answer, can you guys be more funny? The simple answer, which Bailey stated, is no, because all we're doing is creating games from thin air. That's it. We're using our abilities of design and wanting to create meaningful story games with, just me and him here, and present that to the world. That's what we set out to do. If it's funny, it's funny. If it's serious, it's serious. Whatever the game title ends up being drives the whole. So it doesn't always have to be funny.
Yeah. And I'm sure, honestly, like, do this. Like, if you're into this stuff, do it and really see what we're talking about. Like, this is a very improv heavy podcast, which can be scary sometimes, to come up with narrative and story, but it is so much fun, and it doesn't have to be funny to be fun, you know, set that aside and just enjoy the ride, and if not, then deuces. You know, like
Peace, bros.
we don't need you, but thanks for the questions, and you know, we like doing this, so you know, keep sending your questions, and let's get into interaction design. I picture this being like a weird, almost very parallel, straightforward movement, almost like that one game we did with the kids running through the mansion at the dinner table, where you're just running or moving in a straight line and everything's changing around you, and you have to like avoid hitting things and stop, and or it'll randomly branch off and force you to the right, and it's like a linear game with a very non-linear uh, story arc.
Yeah. So I can see like us taking it, I would say if we were to put as a PC game with this idea of linearity in terms of where you're going, like the directionals in which you're facing is a story we set for you. Um, but the non-linearity part that you're saying, I think if we take that bit and we only tweak it to where there's not really so much decision changing that's happening, it's more so what aspects of the game become easier for you later on. Because thinking about it in terms of dependency for something, if you take the right steps toward bettering yourself, it's easier for you. But if you're making it difficult for yourself and you're putting yourself in positions where it's hard for you as an individual to really stray away from what you've been used to, it's that type of conflict, I think, is the only non-linearity to this game. That way of setting yourself up to get help for yourself is going to be solely based off of the decisions that you make with whatever information or whatever I'm missing the word, whatever information and whatever experiences you have, or experiences that you're setting yourself up to experience. So prime example would be, if he's walking into the convenience store and he's having an episode where he really is getting crazy urges, and the glass is right there on the counter to his right. He has money in his pocket. That's right there, like an experience that you put yourself in through the through the linearity of the game that we have for you. But it's a matter of what you do with it, right? What choice will you end up making? Will you make the choice that's not you in the end, or are you going to make the choice that you want to do, that you want to do this for yourself, not so much you know whatever you're thinking is right or wrong. It's just about you as a person. Like, do you want to take the direction of a straight story where this person's always going through the same type of experiences and he's having a hard time getting off of it? Or do we want to take the game where there is this linear path, but based off of what little things happen in that linear path, the choices that you make will not so much be like a butterfly effect where it'll be like, if you make choice A in this point, you'll go into the path A. If you make choice B, you'll go into path B. It's not really what it is. It's more so just what changes for you as a person. So I think, like, if you had your own, let's say, sanity bar, and let's say you had your own um like drug intake bar, and let's say you also had, like, I feel like this game you could throw a bunch of stats on and just have it ride. based
That
on your decisions, your stats will now change, and it could be like a constant. Like your sanity bar can be like at its lowest, and then go all the way back up to its fullest, and you'll just be like, "What did I do to do that?" Right? Like, how did I just reduce all my sanity? Right? I thought I was doing the way to like help me, but my sanity is just gone. Like, what happened?
I'm gonna I'm gonna cut you off there because
Mhm.
I think that with most games that we do, that would fit really well. But with a game that we've already relies so heavily on visuals and what's going on around you and like enjoying or like immersing yourself in that visual experience, I don't like the concept of any type of bar on your screen blocking that visual from you. I think that you should be able to focus on everything around you, and that's it. Maybe that bar that you're saying, those 3 bars, you can transfer that into visuals. So like once you notice these things start to change, you're like, I'm going insane, or I just took class. So like I'm getting back to normal, quote unquote. And that's how we could kind of run it. You know what I'm saying?
Let's argue if I threw in an Apple Watch, right? Let's give this person an Apple Watch, right?
A pair watch,
Or a Pair Watch, whatever,
copyright.
whatever. Right, right. Let's give them
Not
let's give them
not a
some kind of
sponsor.
yeah, not a yeah, Apple's not a sponsor.
Good
Sadly.
try though,
Good try.
Apple.
But we take this watch, right? Because you're able to monitor your health, nowadays. You're able to monitor your health very easily. You can look at your heart rate on the watch. You can monitor. It's crazy. Like your watch will tell you need to take a deep breath. It's like, okay, thanks. But honestly, if you take that little visual, I think if we incorporated that, because I feel like there has to be some feedback, right? Like the person, like I like the whole idea of making everything like a visual thing. So I'm trying to see if we could maybe make some kind of feedback to where it's like helpful, like other than just the visual. Because if we have just the visual, it's nice, it's there. But the question is how complex would it be, right? Because if we take just visuals, I feel like there's a lot of complexity when it comes to that. And I don't know if we so much want to make the player have to think too much on all the complexity, like all the complex things. Like if he's starting to see demons and he's fighting demons, right? What feedback are we going to give to the player that basically said, this is the things you're doing that's causing you to see demons all the time, right?
I got
So,
it.
all right, go ahead.
I got it. You're right. You are right. I like the watch. That's good. Throw it in there. Throw it in there. Moving into gameplay, baby. Game rules mechanics. Because this feedback system has to deal with it.
Hmm.
So take back what I said about it being like a linear movement. I'm going to combine a couple of different game mechanics from different games. I don't know if you've ever played Katamari before. Very old game. Like PlayStation 1, you would roll around this little ball and you would, everything it touched, you'd pick it up and it would add it to the ball. And then eventually it would become as big as like the earth. And that it's a very weird game, but it's very, very good in terms of visuals and gameplay for the time. Very similar like Chibi Robo art style. But take that mechanic and I'll get back to it. And now so you're running around this like globe, like a circle globe, and it's large, whatever. There's buildings, there's stores, so like you can go into it, like you said. And now add this visual feedback where there's other people around you, and there are ticks. We'll put ticks into the art of your character, so that once you start to become like you're going through a withdrawal, you'll start to tick in a certain way. Once you start bugging out, you'll start to tick in a certain way. Once you see things differently, etc., etc. the people around you will have an AI built into them. Well, they'll be doing these ticks. So you can choose to go up to them, approach them, and if you're doing the same things they're doing, they will join you and they'll start following you. And that's like your feedback system. That is your gathering, similar to gathering flower petals in the game Flower or your scarf growing in Journey. Um, but the demons come in once you act differently. People that are following you will break off, turn into demons, and leave your side. And they'll start messing with you, and you got to fight them off because they're not similar to you anymore, and you see them as demons. That's a lot, but what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it all fits. I have no complaints. I don't even have anything to add. I think that all settles everything in.
Damn.
So I'm trying to think, the next thing, if we're considering, other people to be in addition to the feedback system, just quickly back to the watch. I think if we did the watch, it would be simple to do like a heart rate and I'm trying to think. Honestly, I want that drug, intake level in. Like I want that to be something. I think what we'll do is, how if you swipe on the watch, you'll get like a different screen. So I think we'll have like one section of the watch is heart rate. Do a swipe. Another section is like, intake of glass, right? And you could log that in. So it would be interesting too, like if you go to like log it in and if you've just taken glass, right, all your logs are clean, right? You'll be able to read them no problem. Then if you look at the watch and you haven't really logged in or haven't really taken anything at all, you'll start to notice things like get really funky on the watch. Like you can't read the watch properly anymore. Like your heart rate's not read right, and like the drug intake thing isn't read correctly. So back to the feedback system with the people, that's your new reliance. You have to look at what the people are basically giving signs off of because you can't rely on yourself anymore. So you need to like basically take yourself and put yourself into reality of what is actually going on around you, not so much your own environment.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the visuals of it changing like that. Like harder to read, and now you just can't read it, so you got to rely on other people. And it's almost like when you're actually like high on a drug and you're like bugging out. You're like, oh man, everyone's looking at me. Am I am I acting funny? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
And then
so it's the
I was
reverse of
thinking,
that.
yeah, I was thinking then too, if we do another swipe on the watch, right? Because I like the whole allies thing. If we have just a simple contacts list, the contacts list will contain the people that you talk to. But it's funny because if you talk about them switching to demons and he fights them off, right? If he goes back to his contact list, he'll see the names are all weird, but he won't be able to make out what names they are. All he'll remember is he fought these people away. They're gone now. He won't even remember he can't get their names. He can't contact them anymore. It would be really funny or like really interesting rather if he clicks it on the watch to go call someone, right, to get them to talk to them, and it's all demonic voices. That's all he hears when he calls the new the people he fought off. That's all he hears. It's just
Yeah, just like
demonic noises, useless information, can't
groans and
help.
churns.
Yeah.
That's cool. And like you have a little like a bitmoji next to their names when it's like so it's like Joe. Like I pick up Joe and add him to my squad. So it says Joe in the contacts. And then when you break off and turn into a demon, the bitmoji is a demon and it says maybe Joe. Like when someone new texts you and is like, "Hey Bailey, this is Joe." And then your
Yeah.
phone will say maybe Joe.
Yeah.
It's just a funny little visual gimmick, but I
Yeah,
love
no, I
that.
I think it works, yeah.
Sick.
Try to think. Uh, we have what the player can and cannot do to some degree, right? We said like they're gonna walk around kind of aimlessly in this world, even though we have some set path for them, and they're able to interact with other NPCs, get their information, be able to get that information unless they were fought off. And I believe the best way we could say this player progresses is, just through the story. And I think there should not really be so much of a loss condition other than overdose. I think overdose is the only actual way of losing. And I want to say we could make that like an Easter egg way of losing. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to say because to me, I want to say if we throw that in, it's like expressing the dangers of what a drug can do to you. But at the same time, we don't really want to have the player dying. Like we don't want them to die off. We want them to go through this process and experience it to the fullest that they can, even if they have a couple relapses. You know what I'm saying? Because relapse exists. People come back from relapses. That it's not so much a common. I don't want to. I mean, I guess I could call it a common thing. Where people will reuse something because the urges are too strong or whatever situation they're put in makes it impossible for them to really break right off of it at the time. So I think if we just have the relapse idea be a way of just losing progression and the overdose being like just something on the side that we toss in, on the code to be like, oh, you overdosed, try again, basically, even though you really can't. But we could like have it set in to be like one of those things where it's like, if you just overdose, that's fine. We'll take you to the previous part of your story. Don't do it again.
That's good. That's good. That's a good win. That's a good loss, quote unquote, situation. So like it doesn't break the immersion; it just moves you somewhere else. I I think that this is gonna transition into level design, but if you disagree with it, then it won't, um, which is cool. If so, the player starts out in his bed, in their bed, and they find that their bottle is empty or whatever I had said earlier. So the end game, the final step of the journey is simply walking from your house to the drugstore to get a new prescription. That's it. And it's when you leave the house that things start to get weird. So you step out of the house, you're walking forward, it looks like the drugstore is like 100 feet down the road. And then as you're walking closer and closer, the drugstore is getting further and further away. And this is like the intro to the game where it's getting further and further the closer you feel like you're getting to it. And then it's just super small, and like a bird flies by and then another bird flies by, but it's in color. And then you turn around and you look at your house and it's still right behind you and you're like, what is happening? And then you turn around again and everything's in color, and then bam, the game starts. And the end game is getting to the drugstore. That's how the player wins. But when they get there, it's different decisions. Will you take the prescription? Will you walk out without it?
Okay, I like that. I think the only difference I would say is uh if we take that drugstore concept, right? If we just put it as a constant, it's just always there. Rather so much of it being the end goal for the player. I think the end goal for the player is back to the drug intake notification on the watch. If that reaches zero, you know, the player goes through the story experiencing all of life with basically a drug intake of zero all the time. The question is, you know, do we show the player having some form of full recovery? Or is this one of those games where we leave the story up in the air and we're like, this is how this person tried to, wean, go against society? Because the societal norm is this is an over the counter drug that must be given to everybody. So when this is now taken off, right? And the guy who's very dependent on this, he is unable to really get away from it. It's a daily norm. It's a daily constant. it's kind of arguable to say, will this guy even have a full recovery? Was the damage that this drug left for years something that's irreparable? So I think if we just not so much give the game an end, but rather give the game a direction toward it, it'll make more sense. Just with regard to what's exactly going on with it. So like the drugstore should be a constant. Like it should always be there. And the way of getting to it is exactly the way we were just you were just discussing. I like that a lot. But if we take it to where, the player can make a left or a right turn down a street, right? And they're going to different places because they still have things they need to do. They're still someone with a life. They have their own responsibilities that they have to take care of. Just because this drug is now out of their life does not mean those responsibilities go with it. The responsibilities are still there. So this guy that we're creating has to have a life of some kind, has to be a part of something, can't just be, a strict one-way story saying, he's just fighting the drug and that's it. There's life is interesting like that, where if you have one other thing you have to focus on for yourself, it doesn't slow down to the point where there's not going to be the other stuff you have to deal with also. Like you have other responsibilities in life. So I think if we throw that in there and leave the drugstore as that one responsibility in, air quotes, that he has to attend to, he can make that choice. Will it be easier for him to do all of his responsibilities when he's on it? Heck yes. Will it be a lot harder when he's off of it? That's the end all truth of trying to remove the drug from your system. You have to better yourself mentally. It's not
Yeah.
easy to do when you have something you're depending on for all this time, something that's been in your system basically since birth.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I didn't ever. I mean, again, this is never scripted, and when we started this, like, I didn't ever think it would become so poetic, but it definitely is one of those underlying message games, and I think that we should talk more about that in revisiting the story. But do you want to get into audiovisual for time's sake?
yeah. Before we do, just really quick, just so this way, like, it's hammering down the level design to where it's concrete. What we basically discussed is going to be a world of some kind, whether it's city format, suburb format, whatever the case may be. You're gonna have a drugstore, and you're gonna have our character going through their daily norms, which would be like possibly their job, possibly handling family issues, friend issues, whatever the case may be. This person has their own responsibilities. So that's going to be incorporated in the level design in terms of what places they could go to, who they'll interact with on the street as they're getting there, how long the travel is going to be regarding the repeating streets. And what's interesting with that is we could also throw different NPCs on these repeating streets, because realistically it's like passing by people on a normal day. But the real the real interesting part about it is, we are putting those NPCs on the same road to this player. Meanwhile, it's a different road in reality. So that's the only thing I just wanted to say to hammer out level design. So I think we could definitely move into audio visual. And to start it off, I gotta say, definitely some like monotonic, straight, like kind of eerie music whenever everything is normal. To give the player a sense of this shouldn't be the way it should be. And then we take all that, and whenever the color splashes, whenever the color is there, we could amp it up with something lively. But I don't see that as being exactly what we want to do, because I know color versus the black and white scheme, you got, very depressing colors versus like very, upbeat and bursty colors. You would want to follow that with that type of music. But I think if we follow it with that type of music, it'll get away from the whole idea of this person's trying to still fix themselves. So this to them is not normal. This to them is something that's not what they want to be feeling exactly, because it's not the greatest feeling in the world for them. So the real question is do we try to make like a remix of some kind to where we're tossing in an upbeat version of some kind of music that is meant to make you feel twitchy, like make you feel like there's goosebumps on your arms, make you like scratch your neck, like, oh geez, like this is it's a little intense for me, So it's a real, like I feel like I'm battling with this. Like I feel like you got something. Like I feel like you have something that might tie it all together with a nice bow. So
I did, and then you said that, and it kind of shifted my opinion because you're right. I don't think that we want that upbeat psychedelic music playing whenever there are those bright colors, and then something just blatantly sad.
yeah, I totally get exactly what you were talking about.
I stopped talking.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry.
cut it. All right, I'm
Okay,
gonna keep going.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Whenever it's dark, I don't think that that's good because you're right. It takes away from, I think, the struggle that's being shown here. Because if it was blatantly happy one way and blatantly sad the other, it would, like, obviously you'd want to not take the drug because the music is so happy and the art is so happy. But what I do like is what you said, where it has to be some type of shift. So the closest album I can give for reference to this is by a band called Smoke, and I think it came out in the 60s or 70s. And I'll post it on the Twitter and in the Discord, but it is the weirdest album ever that I've ever heard in my life, where it starts off as like a uh, bluesy, kind of bluesy, jazzy, almost like elevator music esque song in the first part, and it's really fun to listen to. And then it transitions into the second song through like a fade out, fade in, so it sounds like it's one long song. And the second song is literally like babies crying and like people smashing on like xylophones and stuff like in the background and hissing and these literal demonic noises, and it scared the crap out of me when I heard it. And then the third song, it goes back to the jazz and the blues. But what they do is they have this blues scale and then flip it to their like harmonic minor equivalent, and then go back and forth the whole time. And it's like, so it doesn't sound like there's much of a transition in the key, but that's something I'm picturing here, where it's like a not necessarily happy, but almost like bluesy while there's all these colors going around, and then hard shift into these crazy sounds and like synth noises rather than music, you know?
Yeah, I dig all that. I think it works perfectly.
Yeah, it kind of goes with what you were saying, I feel like.
Yeah, because he's going through an experience, even though it looks normal to us as people, gone through our daily lives. It's not normal for him. What he's feeling, we don't know. We have no idea what kind of feeling he has with this. Like, there's the only understanding we have is if you've gone through something with that dependency, then you understand maybe to some degree how he feels. But even then, it's a different drug, right? Like, you could argue that the withdrawal symptoms for a lot of drugs is very similar, but at the same token, to what extent, right? Like, what exactly are you feeling? You know, that question is always hard to answer, because once you go to a doctor's office and they ask you, "Oh, what's the problem?" You tell them the problem, but they could be thinking of some problem that you have that isn't correct to the extent that it needs to be. Like, it could be close. Like, you could say you have flu symptoms, or you could have cold, the common cold symptoms. Then the doctor jumps right to COVID, right? That, because of the gravity of the situation, sure, that could be a fair assessment. But at the same time, is it the exact correct one? Is it exactly, based off of just what you feel? Are you missing something that you're not telling the doctor, that you felt it like once or twice, but it, hasn't been the same since, right? Because you could think like, oh, that feeling went away, but that feeling that you initially had could mean a totally different disease because you've had it once before. Just because it went away doesn't mean that what you are experiencing is exactly what the doctor is saying. And there's always that conflict, right? Like, does the doctor really know what they are talking about? But realistically, these are professionals that are put into this field for a reason. You have to trust them to some extent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of like visual, like we've talked about that a lot, so I don't want to harp on it for time's sake, but just to put it into a pretty bow, that it is very much that of a psychedelic trip, and then a hard cut into the opposite of that, the dark brunt of this new reality in this world we've created, and then back again, and then back again. So like in the moment, you could just be walking down the road, everything's fine, a bird is flying around, and then you shift into this psychedelic trip, and the bird hits a skyscraper and turns into butterflies. And everyone's eyes are like purple and moving and flowing, and the clouds are now waves flying around the sky, and stuff like that. The possibilities with art like this is endless, and I appreciate that. I think that's interesting, especially with that hard shift.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the direction of this is pretty sound.
Yeah, it's very sound, and for time, I don't even feel like we have to revisit the story because it's very laid out. I feel like.
You're having trouble getting to the drugstore.
Here we go.
You're having a very hard time getting there. You see a right and a left turn down a seemingly endless street, just like the one you were on. And you don't know whether to go looking for help, or you don't really know whether to just go about your daily business. The drugstore seems completely out of reach for you right now. But are you going to just continue on that path anyway until you get there? Is it going to be the only objective up on your, objective house, so to speak, when you're looking at what you want to do right now? Are the other tasks hidden? Do you really not know? Will you find out if you wait 5 minutes? You never really know because you don't know what you're thinking. Because right now you're going through a very tough time and you're not sure what to do. But pick something because you need to do something. If you don't do anything, you might be putting yourself in more danger than you expect. So I think with this story, if you look at just the potential of walking straight ahead, walking right, walking left, it's very straightforward in what you can do. And it's also very straightforward as to what you should do. But it's up to you as the player to make those decisions. And believe me, it's easier to do something when you're with the norm than it is to go against the norm. And that's a constant. So you as the player need to make that decision. Do you just stick with the norm until something pops up that you might be more attached to at the time? Or do you continue on this path of walking through life in this new light? And do you want to continue it? It may seem hard at first to do it, but do you think it'll get easier? You'd have to find out.
On the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
Sponsored.
Damn it. Yeah, I mean, I love this, man.
This was a good one.
This one's a good one for sure. Welcome to Digital Delights Corner, and Joe just hit us with the heart react. Welcome to Digital Delights Cozy Corner. Today's lesson is normal can never make a difference. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Normal can never make a difference. I think that's all we got time for, man.
Yeah, I think that is all we got time for here, gentlemen and
Oh man.
ladies.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Episode 17, baby. We got big stuff coming up. We got a very fun guest next week. Name is Leanne. We got Evan coming back. We got Eli coming back. It's a party. It's going to be good stuff. We have a really cool guest coming. I'll, I don't want to spoil it, so I won't. Uh, that's it. That's all I got. No plugs this week.
All right. Now, everyone remember, say no to glass.
Uh-oh.
Glass.
Fuck it. I'm Bailey.
and I'm Joe.
Oh man, peace out.
Peace.